I'm Elian Saint-Hilaire, and in this video we're going to take a look at Authenticode timestamping and agent resource customization. So this video is a bit of a follow-up to the work we've been doing on Authenticode and on agent signing. So the general idea is that we want to take each agent that is downloaded by a MeshCentral server, and we want to make it as customized to that server as possible. And one of the major reasons for this is that if you look at antivirus vendors and malware checkers, if the agent is the same for all servers that that are deployed for MeshCentral, then the problem is you can't tell which ones are the bad ones and which ones are okay. So what we want to do is take each agent that is downloaded and customize it to that server. And so what we've done is Authenticode signing of the agent to that server, and you can also use your own customized certificates. So in this video, I want to take that a step further and take a look at Authenticode timestamping, why that's important and why it's now default in MeshCentral, and just kind of go over that. And then the second thing is we're going to take a look at a new feature that allows you to customize the resource information inside the Mesh agent. And that's information that's often used by antivirus vendors to kind of distinguish different executables. So we're going to take a look at that. But so first, let's take a look. I'm going to go back to my desktop here, and I'm going to open, of course, my normal MeshCentral server. So I'm going to go to Central. Let's see. I'm going to go to MeshCentral server right here. Perfect. So this is my sample server, and if I click Add Agent and download an agent, and the agent shows up here, I'm going to go into my download folder. I can right-click on it, say Properties, and I want to notice a few things. First of all, now there's a digital signature, and here I have a silly name because I'm using a test signature here, a test certificate, but the agent is signed, and if you click on Details, there is now this timestamp here. And so why is this important when you sign and you have a timestamp? Well, the thing is, if you only sign an agent with a certificate and you don't timestamp it, what will happen is that as soon as that certificate becomes invalid, the executable becomes no longer valid also. Like Windows will say, well, wait a minute, this executable is signed by a certificate, but the certificate is now expired, and the clock here shows, on the bottom right, shows that the current time is past the expiration time of the certificate, so this executable should not run anymore. So what you want to do is you want to have some kind of proof that the developer signed it, or the MeshCentral server signed this certificate, or signed this executable during the period of time where the certificate was valid. And so what we need to do is have a certificate authority, a trusted certificate authority, look at your signing operation and stamp it and sign it with their certificate. So they're not signing the executable, they're only signing the fact that you signed it at that time, at a certain time. And so you can still use a self-signed cert, you can still use a default certificate from MeshCentral, but you can timestamp it. And timestamp it does not, the certificate authority that's verifying the time obviously is not verifying that your executable is valid or not. It's not granting you any permissions or anything. It's the only thing it's saying is that it got a request at a certain time that you signed this executable, and includes all the cryptographic hashes and everything to make that proof. And so what you do is you use one of the free services to do the timestamp. Now, what is going on is that Authenticode.js, which is the program that's built into MeshCentral, now supports timestamping. And so you can use the manual tool and do --time and then the URI. And a typical URI that you would use is one of these two, for example. So I have it on screen here, timestamp.comodoca.com/authenticode. This would be, and notice it's just HTTP, it's not even HTTPS. And there's no reason to do HTTPS. You're basically saying, verify that I gave you this operation at this time, and they just send you back a signed copy of what you have, with the timestamp. But these are two typical URIs, and what happens is that Authenticode.js or MeshCentral can now basically access one of these URIs, and once it's signed and executable, it can timestamp it. So by default, MeshCentral will use the top one here, timestamp.comodoca.com/authenticode. So that's the default one. So what you can do is you can go into your config.json, and there is a new option called agent timestamp server. And by default, if you do underscore or just remove the line completely, then it will be, let's see, it will be equal to this here, Comodo.ca. So this would be exactly the default right there. Okay, so whenever the MeshCentral needs to sign an agent, it will do the timestamping right there. But you can change it. You can also set it to false. And if you set it to false, then it will not timestamp. But obviously, there's no good benefit to not timestamping unless you really want your server to not access anything outside the server. Like you want the server to be completely private and make no external access to anything. Then maybe you would want to shut it off or something. And the default certificate that MeshCentral uses to sign the agent is like 30 years validity. So I guess it doesn't really matter if you timestamp or not on the self-signed default cert. But if you're using your own certificate that has a 1 or 2 year time frame, super important that you timestamp. So here I have the timestamp set to something, and what I can do is I can go into my MeshCentral data folder. Let's see here. I'm going to go to, I have a developer machine, so this is a little weird, but here, MeshCentral data, I have my signed agents folder. I'm going to delete this, and then you stop MeshCentral, you run it again. It's going to see that the agents are missing, and you notice here it's code signing the MeshCentral agent, 32-bit and 64-bit, and the agents are now signed. You right-click, you say properties, and you'll see digital signature, and you'll see the signature right here. Now let's try just putting this to false. See what happens. So I'm going to set this to false, and then delete these executables, and then run it again. And now we should have no signing whatsoever. And you notice here, when I say don't use a timestamping certificate, the signing is much faster. And the reason it's much faster is because obviously it's not having to go outside to make an HTTP request, and it's also not having to wait for that response and so on. So it can just do everything on the local machine, on the server machine, so it's very fast. But anyway, so here I turned off signing, and you see the signing here is not available. So you see timestamp none. Okay, so I'm going to basically comment this line out, and I am going to go back, delete these files, and run again. And this time it will re-sign again. And it's taking longer because, of course, it's contacting the CA to do the timestamping. And there we go. Perfect. So we have our signature and we have our timestamp. And you can see it right there. Okay. I also like the timestamp because for my own software, sometimes I release minor versions of the software like Mesh Commander. I release different versions without bumping up the version number because that causes like the pop-up for notification for updates and stuff. So what I tell people is look at the timestamp of the signature, and that tells you exactly what binary I have. Like if I do minor bug fixes or stuff, or release something with some testing in it. Okay, so that's timestamping. Hopefully you understand why it's critical. The second thing I want to show you is this new feature that allows you to customize the agent's resource file information. So if you right-click on an agent and you say Properties, and you say Details, you click on the Details tab, you'll see here it says File Description Mesh Agent Service, Product Name Mesh Agent Service, version, and then there's a copyright, there's an original file name. So these fields, this one, sometimes the version number, these are often used to kind of fingerprint a binary by antivirus software or malware vendors. So you may not want to have Mesh Agent Service as the file description because basically even if a new version comes out signed differently, the malware vendor will take a look at this and say, wait a minute, this is something I know from a dictionary or something. And so you want to basically customize this to your server. And why not? If you're a large company, you probably want the Mesh agent to really be customized to your organization anyway. Okay, so the Authenticode.js code that we have in MeshCentral has a crazy piece of code now that allows it to take an executable, break it apart, take apart the resource section of the executable, decode it, re-encode it, put it back in, and then re-sign the modified version. So it's a lot of code. It is part of Authenticode.js, the file. So if you want to take a look at that source code, it's there. And by default, I don't break apart the executable and put it back in together unless I really need to. So if you ask MeshCentral or Authenticode.js, go and change those values in that resource, then it will go and do the break apart and put it back together, the executable. But by default, if you don't request any changes, then it will take the original file and will re-sign it, but it won't start doing some funky things to it. So by default, right now this feature is off. I expect it, but in the future, I expect that I will automate customization of the agent to a local server. So what will happen in the future is that you will be able to, when you right-click and say Properties, and you click on Details here, these will be customized by default to some things on your server, probably the server title, some hashes, some server DNS names, and things like that. So these will be auto-customized. But I want to offer right now the ability for you to customize it any way you want. And so if I search in my config.json for agent customization, so there's already a section called agent customization where you can set the logos and the background color and the description and so on. But those customizations happen only at runtime. So only after you run the agent are those customizations applicable. But in order to customize the agent, when it's dormant or just as a file and Windows is reading it, then you really need to break apart the executable and change those values here. And so I have a new section, and typically I will put it just underneath, for my own use, I'll put it just underneath the agent customization, and it's called agent file info right here. So normally you have agent customization, but I have this new section, agent file info, and you have the file description, You have the legal copyright, the original file name, the product name. There's also product versions, file version, internal name. I've never seen internal name. I don't know. It's supported, but it doesn't show up in the properties folder, so I don't know what that is. But in any case, here I have a sample description. I'm going to put underscore ABC, and then I have the legal copyright. I'm just going to put underscore ABC, original file name .exe, for example, and the product name ABC. There it goes. So I'm going to save this as my config.json. And then what's going to happen is as soon as I restart MeshCentral, MeshCentral will, every time it starts up, it takes a look at the files that are in MeshCentral data/signed agents, just takes a look at these files and makes sure they're correct. And in this case, these files won't match what's in my config.json, the agent file info here. These files will not match that, and so it will cause a resign to happen. So I'm going to Control-C, run the server again, and it will notice, wait a minute, this file is not correct, and it will resign it. So there it goes. And if I right-click and say Properties, Details, you'll see ABC, 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 and the original file name .exe right there. So that's wonderful. And of course, it's digitally signed, and it is also timestamped right there. So I have, basically modified the resource, signed it, and timestamped it. So this agent is really, really customized to my server. The one thing that I don't do currently is change the icon. At some point, that's one thing I'm going to do. I'm already changing, some part of the resource files. So really, the last thing that needs to be done is also customize the icon here. Okay, so the nice thing here is because of this checking every time MeshCentral runs to check if these files are correct, if I Control-C and run again, what MeshCentral will see there, you'll notice that the signature did not happen this time. And that's because these files are correct. Now, another thing to note is that you have to kind of be careful when you update this information. And the reason you have to be careful is because every time you do, anytime you change any resource information, in the future, the icon, but any of these strings, it will causes the agent to look different to MeshCentral, and it will cause a massive update of all the agents. So if you have lots of agents deployed, you have 10,000 agents deployed on 10,000 computers all over the world, if you make this change here and save and restart the server, it will resign. But resigning does not cause the server to notice that the agent's different. So if you resign and you timestamp, the way the hash works for the remote agent update, the signing doesn't count as part of a change. But if you do change one of these strings or in the future the icon, then that will count as a change to the agent. Then what will happen is all the remote agents will notice that they're not updated to the current version, and these agents will be pushed to all your remote machines. So just be super, super careful that everything is working correctly. The other thing I would note is, the resource string stuff is a little experimental. There's reason, it could not work or something. So if you're going to play with this, it would be kind of advisable to maybe run the server on a different port, allow it to create these files, and just double click on them and make sure they work. So if the resources are corrupt in any way, then when you click on it, it won't run. But right now it is running, so these files are valid and it's okay. But just be cognizant that if you put like super long strings or maybe some characters or something, I haven't tested every possible situation here. So it's possible that the resource editor will repack an executable with invalid resource or something, and cause basically MeshCentral to sign and timestamp an executable that doesn't work or isn't valid. So just make sure that these are valid if you are using this resource editing. And once you click on them and they work, then that should be fine. I mean, that's all that really matters. Otherwise, if you do not use this section here, then the nice thing is the reassembly and the breakup and the reassembly of the executable is not done, and so there's a very, very good chance that the executable will be perfectly valid. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. Ultimately, the goal of all this is to make sure that your agent is really customized to your server, and so you have, if you use the agents correctly and somebody else uses the agent for bad, then they'll get penalized, but you won't. So that's the ultimate goal here. So thank you very much. Have a great day.